Alrighty, g'day guys, welcome to a bit of a learning sort of video. It's going to be called Sends Overexplained, alright? So let's get into it. Give myself lots of lumber. So what I'm going to do in this video is we'll split it into three separate parts, but I'm going to go over every single one of these sends, and we're just going to talk about them, when they're good to send, what they do, what you want from them, etc, etc, right? So, first send, Militia, you get what you pay for. It's got 50 HP, 90 range, not much attack speed, fuck all damage, normal light. The idea behind this dude is he's 20 wood, he does some blocking, he's not too bad in general, right? You can send this guy on level 10, and you can send this guy on level 8. 8 for blocking, 10 for, just eating attacks, and then on 12 is alright versus things like Talk or slow attackers like Cyborg. Then 16, same deal. It's good on range levels in general. Mass him on 20. And yeah, so it's like range levels, level 20, and maybe some of the big late game sends, you start seeing like a whole lot of mass going. With the buffs, he can start to get like quite a lot of HP. You can imagine it, you get like some amount of HP every 100 lumber, but if you sent like 5,000 lumber in a game, you're gonna start getting pretty tanky militias going. Anyway, next we've got the horse, of course. The donkey, Mustang, strong and wild. Anyway, for 3 times the amount of wood, you get 4.1 times the amount of HP. Not quite, but about 4 times the amount of HP, so it's not too bad. This thing seems pretty good, honestly. Don't have a complaint about the Mustang or the horse. It has the exact same applications as Militia, but it's, sometimes you'll send them if you know there's exactly IG, then maybe you look to send these a little more. They're not like a warrior replacement on level 1, even versus IG and Clock. But, maybe on like a 6 send or something. Otherwise they have the exact same use as Militia, but probably use Militia a lot. Alright, next Dino, our third tank send. This thing's just as good as it ever was, right? Good amount of damage, 7 income, blocks, distracts units on 10. This unit's the quintessential income send. It's an option to send on level 2. Although there is now another contestant for that, which we'll talk about later. Good send on level 10 still. But it's the level 2 send, the level 10 send, and then the income send. You won't see much of it besides that, but it's pretty alright in general. Next, Furbolg. This thing just had its movement speed reduced, so which is very good, by the way, because this thing was absolutely terrifying on level 2 with the fast tank send. But yeah, it's super strong. The aura is as good as it's always been. The stats are, everything is the same except, if you send it a bit later, it might be a bit stronger. But yeah, this thing is super strong, right? It's a good send. Its Furb on 2 is really scary. Yeah, not much to say. Furb is good. It's good in the same levels, in the same sends, same levels, same places it's always been, except it's just scarier than it used to be. Right, next, Bowman. We've got 600 range now, so we're actually not as great of a send on level 10 as it used to be, just because we don't aggro a lot of units, right? Because we're so far away when we're attacking a lot of the time that a lot of the melee units that would before aggro the bowmen and run around and hit all the bowmen, they're less likely to do that now. So you'll see a little less of the bow, but it's still just a good add to early sends, not bad on 4, good on 8. And then it becomes like a mass send on the range levels, right? Like 12, 16, send some bows, pretty good. Get you some ranger buffs. Like, it's still viable to send on 10, of course, and get some ranger buffs going with it. It's a good unit. Spirit, we just had a bit of a range increase, so 50 more range. I think this will make this thing better on level 4. I believe level 4 has 50 range though, does it tell me here? As the toggle scoreboard doesn't work in debug, never mind. Yeah, but just magic damage. It's a DPS send, so it's obviously squishy, but it does a fair bit of magic damage. This thing is okay. It's not the quintessential send that it was in one like early beta version where this thing was ridiculously strong. I would say this is a fairly uncommon send, but it's not a bad ad. If you've got 80 wood, then I would say Spirit is probably better than 2 Bowman overall. Like if you look purely at the damage, I'd say magic damage is better. I think the range is like fine. So I don't mind the Spirit. I think it's a pretty alright send for 80 wood. It's just with 80 wood, it's not going to be the most impactful sort of thing, right? And if you've got 100 wood instead of 80, you're going to be better off sending a Hermit. Right, next thing we've got the Hermit. So 250 range, got the healing aura. We can read all of these, by the way. Basic archer with the ranged attack, fast attacking range unit, and Dweller of Nature deals good magic damage. So if we compare the DPS, the Hermit has like a bit more, it attacks a bit slower. So you can see 1.1 speed, 0.8 speed, so Spirit attacks quite a bit faster, but that healing aura on the Hermit is like seriously irrelevant. Right? The healing is good against all the king spells, so you're happy to send a Hermit on like 5, 6, 7 in particular, but then after that it does drop off. But you know, it's still good on the 13, 14 sends, of course. Technically it's good on an 11 send. And the level 9 send is just those aren't too common. But yeah, this thing's as good as it's always been. There's not much to say about Hermit. Not a bad resend on like, if you send 1 and then resend 2, Hermit's not bad for that if you're scouting AoE. Things like Malf really hate the Hermit resends. Right, next, Commander. Commander's the same as it's always been. There's really like not much to say about this unit. Besides that it is a mounted rider that slightly boosts the attack of allied units. But yeah, same as Hermit, nothing really changed with Commander, it's as good as it's always been. Dark Troll Commander on level 4 is pretty popular now, although it might drop down slightly with the Dark Troll nerfs. But you know, it's good on 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, very good on 8. It's still an option on 10, although I think you'll see it a lot less because we have got a lot more sends to choose from. Yeah, 12 is really good, 13, 14 you'll see Commanders. Like this thing is just good, you know. It hasn't really gotten better with the new sends, it's just as good as it always was, and sometimes it'll have some more stats. So it's a good unit, good send. Right, Ghoul. Ghoul is not the most useful send. I would say in general having some assassin buff is pretty relevant. So I'm pretty happy to have a Ghoul in general. Or I'm pretty happy that Ghoul is a cheap assassin, because sometimes you just want to like boost some Ghouls in on level 10 and go from there. Yeah, you know, it's not bad as a blocker in the later game sends. Go for the splits on like 31, or even just splits on like late game sends like 27, 28, 24, 27, 28, looking for splits. Yeah, you know, it's okay, it's not good in general, it's one of the weaker sends, but, you know, it's a thing. It does pretty good damage for its cost. Compare it to Militia, so 2 Militias be 10 damage there, 8 to 10. Ghoul's got a pretty fast attack with honestly good damage, so it's not a bad little DPS for 2-3 resends, but you're not going to prioritize them super heavily. Right, next, Warrior. We just got an attack speed buff, but unfortunately we got an indirect nerf because we're an assassin. We spawn late, so we get to the units late, which means, well, we don't get focus super early, but we don't get to get our stuns off super early. So Warrior on 1, haven't chested it since the attack speed buff. That literally just came out like this morning. But yeah, in general, Warrior's a lot weaker on level 1, and then Warrior is not a super impactful send outside of level 1. Only gives 2 income for 60 wood, which while that is totally balanced and reasonable, otherwise I think you would see a lot more Warrior sends. While it's totally balanced and reasonable for it to only give 2 income, makes it feel kind of bad to send on like level 5, right? I think a lot of the time if I've got 60 wood and I want to send full on 5, I'm gonna send a horse, of course, you know? It's a muscular green-skinned fighter, but yeah, I think it's gotten a little bit worse with this update, which is okay. Yeah. Right, next we've got the Whelp, a flying dragon filled with youthful energy. Used to be the fucking meme Whelp send, but you can see this thing's kind of scary now. So speed is 1.3, and the higher speed is slower attack, so it hasn't got the quickest attack. It's pretty similar attack speed to Warrior. Attacks a little bit slower than Furb. But anyway, it does pretty good damage, right? 40 to 46 magic for 120 wood. If we compare that to Dino, 31 to 35 piercing, and I would say magic in general is going to be a bit better than piercing. Generally because medium armor units, I guess they got indirectly buffed by level 3 getting indirectly nerfed, but level 2 is still scary. I would say I like magic damage overall. So I think this Whelp is going to be pretty damn good on 2. If you're a 1-0, I think it's really going to contest with Dino. I kind of think it's better, but I'm not sure. I haven't done a lot of testing with it yet. It's not a good level 1 send, but yeah, for 120 wood, like if you got 120 wood on levels 1, well, not really level 1, but on level 2, 3, 4, well, 2, 3, 5, and you're looking for a send, like, I would say you can seriously think about a Whelp. Level 4 it'll just run in front and die, so it's not good there, but 2, 3, 5, I think you can seriously think about sending a Whelp over a commander and not feeling too bad about it, especially if you've seen they got magic damage. The other nice thing the Whelp does is it buffs the assassins, right? Buffing the assassins is really, really helpful. Getting those damage buffs, rolling those percent damage buffs. The big sends that'll have a lot, that have just like a good amount of damage, buff the attack speed a bit, they get really scary, right? So Whelp I think is super good now. So you'll send this guy on level 2 if you've got the 1-0 start, might send him on level 3 and 5 if you're looking for a send and you've got that 120 wood. He's not better than Furb, I'm not trying to say that, but I think he contests Commander on levels, I think he's better than Commander on level 2. I think he contests on level 3, but I think he might be a bit better, and I think it's, yeah, you can make a case for sending either of them on level 5 with the 120 wood. And then on level 10, I think you can send this Whelp again, if you want the assassin buffs, right? If you specifically want assassin buffs, and you're not as worried about, like, the slightly better income and slightly better level 10 send being Dino, right? I think this thing's pretty good. I think it's got its niche now, which is weird, right? Whoever thought Whelp would be a send that's not a complete troll. Alright, lastly we've got the Kobold. Oh, you can read that there. Sneaky melee fighter. So its ability is it steals 1 attack damage with each hit, right? So if it's smacking a unit, its damage will go up and up and up and up, and the units it's hitting will go down and down and down by 1 damage on the min and max roll, right? It attacks relatively quickly, slightly slower than Spirit, exact same as Bowman, to give you like a reference. But in general, this thing's not great, right? So if we compare it to a Furb, they cost the same amount of lumber, and the Furb comes faster. So Furb's got 36 to 50 damage, admittedly less attack speed, but 36 to 50 damage. We have 28 to 34, and piercing is kind of crap, right? Because it's only good versus light, but normal is good versus medium, and like pretty fine against light and heavy, right? This thing's pretty bad against heavy. So, I'm not the biggest fan of pierce damage on my sends. I would rather have the normal damage from the Furb. It's also worth noting that the assassin coming late really just doesn't synergize with what this guy wants to do. This guy wants to get to the enemy units like quickly and just start stealing the attack, right? But yeah, it doesn't really get to do that too well with the assassin. With the assassin trait of coming in late. I don't think there's a whole lot of niche for this guy. I think the Furb is just so dominant compared to it that if I've got 140 wood, then if I'm not sending a Furb, I'm sending a Dark Troll, and I don't think I'm ever sending a Kobold. So I would say Kobold he's in a tough spot in the sense that we have 2 really, really good sends for 140 lumber, Furb and Dark Troll. Both of them are like top tier sends in the early game. And Kobold is in the exact same, has the exact same cost. And he's just not in that same category, right? If he had a different lumber cost and was, you know, balanced differently according to that lumber cost, he would be a lot more interesting as a send, I think. But at the moment, that 140 wood is just way too contested. But yeah, that's the first barracks units. So the 4 tanks, 4 rangers, 4 assassins. So yeah, hopefully you guys learned a little bit, so you can think about those sends, think about when you want to send them. But in general, everyone's still testing them out a little bit, so if you find something that works, like if you just want to send mass horses, then go for that. Alright, cheers very much for watching, guys, appreciate it, like, subscribe, all of that, and I'll catch you in the next one.